The message arrived on a Tuesday, no warning, no build-up. No dramatic music playing in the background, just a signal. Cold, clean, and precise. Cutting through every communication system on Earth at exactly 9:14 in the morning. Every phone buzzed, every screen flickered. Every radio on the planet went silent for 3 full seconds. And then the message played. It was not in English. It was not in any human language. But somehow every person who heard it understood it perfectly. As if the words had been placed directly inside their minds. The message was short. Attention. Species of planet Earth. Designation, Primitive Class 4. You have been observed. You have been evaluated. You have been found acceptable for assimilation. You will surrender your planet, your resources, and your species to the authority of the Galactic Council within 72 hours. Resistance is not recommended. This is your only warning. And then the signal stopped. For about 5 seconds, the entire world was completely silent. Then it went absolutely insane. News channels exploded. Social media crashed within minutes. Governments called emergency meetings. People ran into the streets. Some screamed, some cried. Some laughed because they thought it was a joke. It was not a joke. In Washington, the President of the United States sat in the Oval Office staring at a wall. His advisors were shouting over each other. Someone was already talking about surrender. Someone else was already talking about prayer. In Moscow, the Russian president stood at a window, completely still, watching his city below. His hands were behind his back, his face showed nothing. In Beijing, 3 generals argued loudly in a conference room while a 4th one sat quietly in the corner, not arguing, just thinking. In a small town in rural Pakistan, an old farmer looked up at the sky, squinted, and went back to watering his crops. He had survived a lot of things in his life. He figured he would survive this too. The world reacted in 1,000 different ways. But the message was the same for everyone. 2 hours. Surrender or else. What most people did not know, what the news channels were not reporting yet, was that the message had not come alone. High above Earth, sitting just outside the moon's orbit, there was a ship, one ship. It was not a small ship. It was roughly the size of a city, dark metal, almost invisible against the black of space. It had no lights, it made no sound, it simply sat there, watching. The ship belonged to the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council had existed for over 6,000 years. They had started as a small alliance of 3 species, the Vorath, the Shenkai, and the Dralland, who had decided long ago that the galaxy would be much easier to control if everyone followed the same rules. Their rules. Over 6,000 years. They had grown, some species joined willingly. Others were given the same message Earth had just received. Most of those surrendered immediately. The ones who did not surrender were made an example of. There were 14 dead civilizations in the galaxy that served as reminders of what happened when someone said no to the Galactic Council. 14 planets reduced to rock and dust, cold and empty, floating in space like gravestones. The Council had not lost a single war in 4,000 years. They did not expect to start losing now. The ship above Earth was commanded by a being named Vorkon. He was Vorath, 7 feet tall, gray-skinned, 4 arms, 2 of which were purely for combat. He had served the Council for 200 years. He had delivered this same message to 11 other species. 10 of them had surrendered, 1 had not. That planet was now a gravestone. Vorkon stood on the bridge of his ship. Watching Earth's surface below, the planet was blue and green. Surprisingly beautiful for a Class 4 world. He watched the tiny lights on the dark side of the planet. Millions of cities. Millions of beings going about their short, primitive lives. His second in command, a Shenkai named Zell, stood beside him. "They are panicking," Zell said, reading the sensor data. "Communications are chaotic. Emotional responses are high. This one will surrender quickly." Vorkon said nothing for a moment. "Pull up their history file," he said. Zell blinked. "Their history." "Why?" "They are a Class 4, barely achieved space travel. No significant weapons detected beyond basic orbital defense systems. There is nothing in their history that would—" "Pull it up," Vorkon said again quietly. Zell did. The file was long, longer than most Class 4 species. Vorkon scrolled through it slowly. Reading, the wars, the weapons. The way humans had fought each other for 10,000 years without stopping. The way they had developed more ways to kill than almost any species the Council had ever encountered. He read about a war that had ended just 80 years ago, a war that had involved almost every nation on the planet, a war where humans had killed over 70 million of their own kind in just 6 years, and then, immediately after, rebuilt everything and moved on. He read about their nuclear weapons, weapons they had built almost 100 years ago, weapons powerful enough to destroy their own planet, weapons they had chosen not to use, not because they couldn't, but because they decided not to. Vorkin closed the file. "How long until the 72 hours pass?" he asked. 68 hours remaining, Zell said. Vorkin nodded slowly. He looked back at the blue-green planet below. "Keep watching them," he said, carefully. "Back on Earth." In an underground military bunker beneath a mountain in Colorado, 12 people sat around a table. These were not politicians, these were not diplomats. These were the people who got called when things went beyond what politicians and diplomats could handle. General Sandra Reyes sat at the head of the table. She was 53 years old, short gray hair, calm eyes. She had spent 30 years in the military. She had seen war, she had planned war, she had ended wars. She read the message again on the screen in front of her. Then she set down her coffee cup, looked around the table, and said simply, "Thoughts, a man named Dr. Osi, head of Global Communications Analysis, spoke first. The signal technology is beyond anything we have. The linguistic encoding alone suggests a civilization at least 2,000 to 3,000 years more advanced than us. Whoever sent this, and they are not bluffing." A woman named Admiral Chen leaned forward. "Our orbital defense systems are not designed for something that size. If that ship decides to fire on us, we have maybe 40 minutes of real resistance." Maybe another man, young, nervous, a diplomat named Harris, said quietly, "Then we should consider the possibility of—" "Don't," General Reyes said. Harris stopped. "Don't say surrender," she said. "Not in this room, not yet." She stood up and walked to the large screen on the wall. The screen showed a live satellite image of the alien ship sitting above the moon. She stared at it for a long moment. "They sent one ship," she said. The room was quiet. "They sent one ship," she said again. "To deliver a message to an entire planet, that tells us something. That tells us they think one ship is enough. That tells us they don't think we're worth sending a fleet for." She turned around. "That is either because they are absolutely certain we will surrender, or it is the biggest mistake they have ever made." Nobody spoke. General Reyes sat back down. She looked around the table slowly, one face at a time. "I'm going to ask you all one question," she said. "And I need honest answers, no politics, no fear. Just truth." She put her hands flat on the table. "Can we fight back?" The room was silent for 10 seconds. Then Admiral Chen looked up from her papers. "Not with what they know we have," she said. "But—" She paused. "There are things we have been building. Programs that were never made public. Weapons that were never announced. Things that were developed quietly over decades. For exactly a scenario we hoped would never come." General Reyes looked at her. "How ready are they?" Admiral Chen met her eyes. "Ready enough," General Reyes nodded slowly. "Then here is what we are going to do," she said. "We are going to send them a reply, a short one, and then we are going to get to work." The reply was sent 40 minutes later. It was exactly 11 words. Message received. "We will have our answer for you soon. On the ship above the moon." Zell read the reply and almost laughed. "They said they will have an answer soon," he told Vorkan, smiling. "They are scared. They are stalling. They will surrender before the deadline." Vorkan read the message himself. He read it twice. He did not smile. Something about the message bothered him. He could not explain it. It was not the words, it was the tone. The message had no fear in it, no desperation, no begging. Just 11 flat, calm words. "We will have our answer for you soon." "Increase observation," he said quietly. "Sir?" Zell looked confused. "Watch everything. Every military movement, every communication, every satellite launch, every city. Watch all of it." "You think they are planning something?" Zell asked, slightly amused. "They are a Class 4 species. They have had space travel for less than 100 years. What could they possibly—" "I don't know," Vorkan said, still staring at Earth. "That is the problem." Down on Earth, in that same underground bunker, General Reyes stood alone in a small side room. She was looking at a photograph on the wall. A picture of Earth taken from space, blue and green and impossibly beautiful. She thought about the 14 dead planets, the 14 civilizations that no longer existed. She thought about what it would mean if Earth became the 15th. Then she picked up her phone and made a call. It was answered on the first ring. "Get everyone on the line," she said. "Every nation, every military, every program. Everything we have been hiding and saving and building for 20 years. A pause. "Yes, ma'am," the voice said. "All of it?" General Reyes looked at the photograph one more time. "All of it," she said. "They want an answer in 72 hours. Let's make sure it's one they'll never forget." She hung up outside the bunker. The world was still panicking, still screaming, still asking questions nobody could answer. But in that bunker, and in dozens of other bunkers, labs, bases, and facilities around the world that most people had never heard of, something quiet had begun, something the Galactic Council had never prepared for, something no species had ever survived long enough to warn them about. Humanity was getting ready. It started with a phone call. Not one phone call, 1,000 phone calls, all at the same time, all going to the same kind of people: generals, scientists, engineers, weapons designers, people who worked in buildings that did not appear on any map, people whose names did not appear in any public record, people who had spent years waiting for a call they hoped would never come. It came, within 3 hours of General Reyes giving the order. The world began to move, not the world that most people could see. Not the world of news channels and panicking crowds and politicians giving speeches. The other world, the one that existed underneath. The one that had been quietly preparing for something exactly like this for a very long time. In a facility buried 200 meters beneath the Nevada desert, a team of engineers pulled white covers off machines that had not been touched in 4 years. The machines were big, bigger than anything seen in a normal factory. Strange shapes, strange materials, things that had no public name because they had never been shown to the public. The lead engineer, a woman named Dr. Priya Nair, walked slowly down the row of machines, running her hand along the side of one of them. She had spent 11 years building these. 11 years of secret work, secret funding, secret tests in the middle of the night when no satellites were passing overhead. People had called her crazy, even inside the program. Even the people who funded her. They had called it a waste of money. A project built for a threat that would never come. She looked at the machines now and felt something very close to sadness. She had hoped they would never be needed. "Power them up," she said. The room filled with a deep low hum in Moscow. The Russian president was already on a call with Beijing. The call had been going for 40 minutes. There were no translators on the line. Both men spoke directly. Both men understood the situation the same way. "They are not here to negotiate," the Russian president said. The message was not an invitation, it was a command. "Agreed," said the Chinese president, "and a command from a position they believe is total strength. Then we must change what they believe. Yes." A pause. "I am told your northern program is active." It was active the moment the signal hit. A pause. "And yours?" Ours never stopped. Both men were quiet for a moment. "We will need to share everything," the Russian president said. "No holding back, not now." "No," the Chinese president agreed. "Not now." The call ended 3 minutes later. Encrypted data began flowing between Moscow and Beijing. Data that had never been shared before. Weapons designs, research files. Technology that each nation had kept secret from the other for decades. The same thing was happening between Washington and London. Between Paris and Tokyo. Between Canberra and New Delhi. Between countries that had been rivals for 100 years, old enemies were becoming something else. Not friends, not yet. Something more urgent than friends. Allies on the alien ship above the moon. Zell was reading the sensor reports with growing confusion. "There is unusual activity on the surface," he said. "Military movements across multiple regions simultaneously. Communications are now encrypted. We cannot decode them. Satellite launches detected. 3 in the last 2 hours. Forkin stood at the observation window, watching Earth. "What kind of satellites?" he asked. "Unknown configuration," Zell said, frowning at the data. "They do not match any civilian or military satellite in our records of this species." Forkin said nothing. "It is probably panic," Zell said. "Species often increase military activity in the hours after receiving the message. It is a fear response. They are not actually preparing to fight. They are just moving. It makes them feel like they are doing something." Forkin nodded slowly, but he kept watching. In a conference room in Geneva, Switzerland, 53 of the world's top physicists sat together for the first time in history. Many of them had never met in person. Some of them had spent their careers arguing with each other in academic papers. Some of them actively disliked each other. None of that mattered now. A man named Dr. James Okafor stood at the front of the room. He was the oldest person there. 71 years old, white hair, calm voice. He had spent 40 years working on a theory that his colleagues had called impossible. He looked around the room at all the faces. "You all received the package this morning," he said. "The files I was never allowed to share before today." Several people in the room nodded slowly. Some looked stunned. A few looked like they had not slept since reading the files. "Questions later," Dr. Okafor said. "Right now I need to know one thing from each of you. Can your work connect to mine, yes or no, one by one?" The people in the room answered. Most said yes. By the end of the day, they were already building something together, something that had no name yet, something that had only existed in theory until today. It was no longer just theory. Back in the Colorado bunker, General Reyes was receiving updates every 15 minutes. The reports came from everywhere, from every continent, from programs she had known about and programs she had not even known existed until today. It turned out that humanity had been quietly preparing for a long time, not always together, not always with a shared goal, but preparing, each nation building its own pieces of something, never quite knowing what the finished picture looked like. Now the pieces were coming together. Admiral Chen entered the room and set a tablet on the table in front of Reyes. "Nevada is online," Chen said. "The European Deep Space Array is active. We have confirmation from 7 other facilities." And she paused, and Reyes said, "The orbital platforms," Chen said quietly. "All 12 of them." Reyes looked up. "All 12. All 12, Chen confirmed. They were built over 18 years. Launched in pieces disguised as weather satellites and communications equipment. Nobody outside this program knew what they actually were." Reyes leaned back in her chair. "Does the ship above the moon know about them?" "No," Chen said. "The platforms have no active emissions. They look like dead metal to any scanner. They will not know until we decide to turn them on." Reyes nodded slowly. "Good," she said. "Keep them dark." Meanwhile, something else was happening. Something that no government had planned. Something that no general had ordered. Ordinary people were helping, not with weapons, not with technology, just helping. In cities around the world, people were volunteering. For anything, for everything. Supply lines, communication networks, local emergency systems. Thousands of engineers and doctors and teachers and truck drivers showing up and saying the same thing in 100 different languages. "Tell us what to do." In a small town in Germany, a retired mechanic named Klaus organized his entire neighborhood to convert a warehouse into a medical supply depot. He had no orders from anyone. He just did it because it seemed like the right thing to do. In a fishing village in the Philippines, a woman named Maria gathered every boat owner in the area and quietly moved critical equipment to hidden inland locations. Nobody asked her to. She had simply listened to the message from the Galactic Council and then thought, if they come, they will target the coast first. In a high school in Brazil, a 17-year-old boy named Lucas wrote a computer program in one night that helped coordinate volunteer communication across his entire city. By morning, 50,000 people were using it. Governments had not told people to do these things. Humanity just did them. Because that was the thing about humans that the Galactic Council had not read carefully enough in that history file. Humans were at their most dangerous when they were scared and working together. 48 hours after the message arrived, Vorkin called his senior staff together on the bridge.
He had not slept. His forearms were folded.
His gray face was unreadable. "Report," he said. Zell stepped forward. He looked less confident than he had 2 days ago. "The surface activity has not slowed," he said. "It has increased. The encrypted communications now cover approximately 94% of all human transmissions. We are essentially blind to what they are saying. The satellite launches continue. We now count 17 new objects in orbit. All appear inactive, all of unknown purpose," another officer, a young Droll named Kess, added quietly. "We also detected what appears to be a coordinated power surge from multiple underground locations on 3 different continents. The energy signatures are unusual." "Unusual how?" Vorkin said. Kess hesitated. We do not have a category for them in our database. Sir, the bridge was quiet. Zell cleared his throat. It is still most likely a fear response. Their history shows that humans often build and move and prepare even when there is no logical reason to. It is almost compulsive for them. It does not mean they have anything capable of threatening us. Vorkan looked at Zell for a long moment. Send a scout drone, he said in close range. I want eyes on those underground facilities, sir. If we send a drone into the atmosphere, they will detect it. Yes, Vorkan said. They will. Send it anyway. I want to see their reaction. The drone entered Earth's atmosphere 40 minutes later. It was small, fast, almost impossible to detect with normal technology, almost. The drone made it approximately 60 kilometers above the surface before something hit it. Not a missile, not a laser, something else, a pulse, invisible, instant. The drone simply stopped working. It fell out of the sky and burned up on the way down. The whole thing took less than 4 seconds on the ship. Zell stared at the empty sensor screen where the drone's signal had been. He stopped. They detected it. Yes, Vorkan said. And they destroyed it in 4 seconds. Yes, with technology we cannot identify. Yes, the bridge was very quiet. Vorkan turned and looked at Zell directly. Does that still sound like a fear response to you? Zell had no answer. Back on Earth, General Reyes received the report about the drone within minutes. She read it, set it down, and looked at Admiral Chen. They know we shot it down, she said. Yes, Chen said. Good, Reyes said simply. She stood up and walked to the map on the wall. The map showed Earth, every facility, every platform, every piece of the puzzle that had been quietly assembled over decades. All of it now active, all of it now connected. 36 hours remained on the Council's deadline. How are we looking? Reyes asked. Chen took a breath. Honestly, better than I expected. The coordination between nations has been remarkable. Things that should have taken months are happening in hours. People are not arguing. They are not playing politics. They are just working. Reyes nodded. Because they understand what losing looks like. Yes. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then she said, when the deadline comes and they demand our surrender, we are not going to give them one. Chen nodded. I know. We are going to give them something else. What? General Reyes looked at the map one more time. A demonstration, she said quietly. Just a small one. Just enough to make them understand exactly what they walked into. She picked up her coffee cup. Let them come, she said. We will be ready. And they were, 36 hours later. When the Galactic Council fleet finally crossed into Earth's solar system, 10,000 warships, the largest force the Council had ever assembled, they expected to find a terrified, surrendering species waiting for them. Instead, they found silence. No radio signals, no visible movement. No defense ships rising to meet them. Just a quiet solar system, still and dark. The Council commander looked at his screens and felt the first cold touch of doubt. Where are they? He said. Nobody answered because nobody knew. But they were about to find out. The Council fleet was the most powerful thing in the galaxy. 10,000 warships moving in perfect formation, cutting through the darkness of space like a blade. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Each ship carried weapons that had destroyed civilizations. Each ship had fought in wars across 100 star systems and never lost. The fleet commander was a Vorath named Grand Admiral Threx. He was 300 years old. He had personally commanded the destruction of 2 planets. He had never once felt fear in battle. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, a ship so large it could swallow a small moon, and looked at his screens. Earth's solar system was ahead. It looked empty. Threx clasped 2 of his 4 hands behind his back and studied the data. No defensive fleet rising to meet us, his tactical officer reported. No weapons signatures detected. No communication signals. The planet appears quiet. Appears? Threx repeated. Yes, sir, appears. Threx did not like that word. On the screens back at the Colorado bunker, General Reyes watched the Council fleet enter the solar system. She watched calmly, both hands wrapped around a coffee cup. Her face completely still. Around her, the room was full of people at stations, screens everywhere, data flowing, numbers updating every second. The room was almost silent except for the low hum of machines and the occasional quiet voice reading out a status report. Fleet has passed the outer marker, someone said. Confirmed, said another voice. All 12 orbital platforms holding dark. No emissions, underground facilities, status, all green. Standing by. Nevada Array. Ready. Deep Space Network. Ready. General Reyes took a slow sip of coffee. Hold, she said quietly. Let them come in further. Threx moved his fleet slowly. Deliberately, he had done this before. The slow approach was part of the method. It gave the planet's inhabitants time to see them coming. Time to understand the size of the force. Time to feel small. Most species, by this point, had already begun sending surrender signals. Earth was silent. Scan the planet again, Threx ordered. His science officer ran the scan, then ran it again, then looked up with an expression Threx had never seen on that officer's face before. Confusion, sir, the officer said slowly. There are structures in orbit around the planet that were not in our previous scans. Threx turned. What structures? 17 objects. They appear to be platforms of some kind. They are showing no power signatures. No emissions, they are completely cold, but they are large. How large? A pause. Each one is approximately 2 kilometers in length. The bridge went quiet. Threx stared at his officer. 2 kilometers. Yes. Sir? And they were not in our previous scans. No, sir. They were hidden somehow. The materials they are built from do not reflect our standard scan frequencies. Threx turned back to the main screen and looked at the planet. A Class 4 species, they had said. Barely achieved space travel. No significant weapons. Nothing worth worrying about. He thought about Vorkan's reports. The destroyed scout drone, the unusual energy readings, the encrypted communications battle stations, he said. The moment the Council fleet went to battle stations, something on Earth woke up. Not visibly, not loudly. 17 cold, dark, silent platforms floating in orbit simply began to hum. Very quietly, very quickly on the Council fleet sensors, 17 dead objects suddenly blazed to life. Power surge detected, the tactical officer shouted. The orbital platforms they are activating. Energy readings are... He stopped. He looked at his screen. He looked at it again. Sir, the energy readings are off our scale. Off your scale, Threx said. Our instruments do not go that high. General Reyes set down her coffee cup. Now, she said. What happened next lasted exactly 4 minutes. The 12 orbital platforms fired first. Not with missiles. Not with anything the Council had ever seen before. They fired with something that looked, on sensors, like nothing at all. No visible beam, no explosion. No flash of light, just results. 40 Council warships stopped working simultaneously. Their engines cut out. Their weapons went dead. Their lights went dark. They drifted, completely powerless, like dead rocks floating in space. 40 ships gone in under 3 seconds. The Council fleet froze. In 4,000 years of war, the Galactic Council had never had 40 ships disabled in 3 seconds. What was that? Threx said. Nobody on his bridge had an answer. Then the Nevada Array fired. The array had been built 200 meters underground by Dr. Priya Nair and her team over 11 years. Nobody outside the program knew what it actually did. Even inside the program, only a handful of people understood the full theory. What it did, in simple terms, was reach through space and pull. Not physically, not with a tractor beam. It pulled at the fundamental forces holding a ship's systems together. Gravity, electromagnetism, all the invisible threads that made technology work. And for just a fraction of a second, in a sphere approximately 300 kilometers wide, it pulled them the wrong way inside that sphere. Every piece of Council technology simply was stopped. 112 ships went dark, 112 in one shot. Threx grabbed his command console to stop himself from falling. His ship was at the edge of the effect range. His systems flickered but held. He looked at his screens. 152 of his ships were already gone, disabled, drifting in less than 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Return fire, he ordered, his voice tight. All weapons. Target the orbital platforms. The fleet fired. Thousands of weapons discharged at once. The firepower that had cracked planets, that had burned atmospheres, that had turned oceans to steam. Directed at 17 platforms floating in Earth's orbit, the shots hit. And the platforms absorbed them, not perfectly. 2 platforms took heavy damage, 1 went dark, but 14 of them were still standing, still humming, still pointing at the Council fleet. Threx stared at his screen. They absorbed our fire, his tactical officer whispered. I can see that, Threx said. What Threx did not know, what he had no way of knowing, was that the platforms were only one layer. There were more layers from the dark side of the moon. Something moved, not something small. 36 ships emerged from behind the moon, moving fast, moving together. They were human ships, but not like anything in the Council's records, not the small, fragile spacecraft that humanity had been publicly launching for the past century. These were different, longer, darker, angular in ways that seemed almost aggressive. Built not for exploration but for exactly one purpose. They had been constructed in hidden facilities over 20 years, assembled in pieces in orbit while disguised as dead satellites, never powered, never active until today. The Council fleet's sensors screamed warnings. "New contacts," the tactical officer said, voice rising. 36 unidentified vessels fast, sir. They are fast, their speed is... He stopped, checked his readings. "Sir, that speed is not possible for a species at their technology level." "Clearly it is," Threx said through his teeth. The human ships did not slow down. They hit the Council fleet like 36 thrown knives. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 47 minutes. In those 47 minutes, the Galactic Council, the most powerful military force in the known galaxy, lost 914 ships. 914. The human ships moved in ways Council ships could not predict. They did not fight in formations, they did not follow patterns. They split apart and came together and split apart again, always moving, always changing, making it almost impossible to target them. 2 of the human ships were destroyed, 2. The Council's tactical computers could not keep up. They were designed to predict enemy behavior based on patterns. But humans, it turned out, were extraordinarily difficult to predict. Because humans themselves did not always know what they were going to do next. They improvised, they adapted, they changed their minds mid-battle and did something completely different. It was, from a pure tactical standpoint, maddening. Threx watched his fleet fall apart around him. He had never felt anything like this before. Not fear exactly, something colder than fear. The understanding that he had made a mistake. "A very large mistake. Order a retreat," he said. His communications officer turned.
"Sir, order a retreat. We are pulling back."
"Regroup outside the system and..." "Sir," the officer said again, voice strange. "We cannot retreat." "What?" "The exit vectors," the officer said quietly. "They are blocked." Threx turned to the navigation screen. Behind the fleet, emerging from positions hidden in the asteroid belt, were more human ships. Not as large as the first group, but enough, spread across every viable exit path, positioned with mathematical precision. The Council fleet was not being attacked from one direction. It was surrounded. Threx looked at the screen for a long moment. He thought about the history file, the one Vorkan had pulled up before the deadline, the one that showed 10,000 years of human warfare, the strategies, the adaptations, the way humans had fought and lost and learned and fought again. He understood now what he had not understood before. Humans had not been building these weapons in response to the Council's message. They had been building them for years, quietly, patiently, preparing for a threat they did not even know the name of yet. Just preparing because that was what humans did. They looked at an uncertain future and they built things. Weapons, defenses, contingencies, backup plans for their backup plans. The Council had looked at humanity's public face, the small space program, the basic technology, the political arguments, and called them primitive. They had not looked underneath. They had not seen the other world, the one that existed below the surface, the one that had been quietly getting ready, on a captured Council scout ship that had been boarded by human soldiers 20 minutes into the battle. A young Shenkai crew member named Vel sat against a wall with his hands up. A human soldier stood in front of him, not tall, not intimidating by Shenkai standards, but completely calm, which was somehow worse. Vel looked at the soldier and said, in the translated tongue the Council used for all species, "How? You were supposed to be primitive." The soldier looked at him for a moment, then said simply, "We were never primitive. We were just quiet." Vel thought about that. Outside the ship the battle continued, Council warships falling one by one. The great fleet of the Galactic Council, 6,000 years of power, 4,000 years without a single defeat, coming apart in the darkness of a solar system they had expected to conquer in an afternoon. On the flagship, Threx made one last decision. If he could not retreat, if he could not win, he would end it. The flagship carried a planet killer, a weapon so powerful that even the Council only built one per fleet. a weapon that had only ever been used once before, on one of the 14 dead civilizations. It had never missed. Threx gave the order. The planet killer armed itself, a slow, deep process that took 60 seconds. During those 60 seconds, the flagship systems redirected all available power to the weapon on the human ship's sensors. The energy reading from the flagship suddenly spiked to levels that meant only one thing. On Earth, in the Colorado bunker, every screen in the room changed color. General Reyes stood up. "Is that what I think it is?" she said. "Yes," Admiral Chen said. Voice tight. "Planet killer charging now. 60 seconds to fire." The room went very still. Reyes looked at the screen for exactly 3 seconds, then she said, "Execute Protocol 7. Chen nodded and picked up a phone. On the screen, the timer counted down. 50 seconds, 40, 30. The planet killer finished charging. The flagship oriented toward Earth. The weapon was ready. Threx gave the final order. The weapon fired, and then something impossible happened. The signal disappeared, not the ship, not yet. Just the signal from the weapon, vanishing instantly, as if it had been swallowed by something invisible sitting between the flagship and Earth. Threx stared at his screen. "Report," he said. Silence. "Report," he said again, louder. His weapons officer turned slowly, face pale, voice barely above a whisper. "Sir," the officer said. "The weapon? It's gone. Gone where? We don't know. It fired." And then it was gone. Threx stared at the screen showing Earth. Still blue, still green, still there. And for the first time in 300 years of war, Grand Admiral Threx felt something he did not recognize at first. It took him a moment to identify it. Fear. The planet killer was gone, not deflected, not destroyed in a visible explosion, not shot down by a missile or a laser or anything the Council's sensors could identify. Just and gone. One moment it was there, a weapon powerful enough to crack a planet open like an egg, moving at full speed toward Earth, and then it was not there, as if the universe had simply decided it did not belong anymore and quietly removed it. Threx stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the empty screen. Around him, his crew was completely silent. Not the silence of people waiting for orders. The silence of people who did not understand what they had just seen. The silence of beings who had believed for their entire lives that there were rules to how the universe worked, and had just watched those rules get ignored. "Sir," his weapons officer said finally, voice barely working. "The weapon. There is no debris, no energy signature, no residual heat trail. It is as if it never existed." Threx said nothing. "Sir." "What do we do?" Threx looked at the screen showing Earth. Still there, still blue and green and impossibly calm, as if a planet killer had not just been fired at it 30 seconds ago. He thought about 6,000 years of Council history, 6,000 years of power, of expansion, of species after species bowing down because there was simply no other choice. Because the Council was too strong, too large, too ancient to be challenged. He thought about 14 dead civilizations reduced to cold rock and dust. And then he thought about this small, young, supposedly primitive species that had just made his planet killer disappear. "Get me a direct line to the human command," he said. In the Colorado bunker, General Reyes was still standing. She had not sat down in the last 4 minutes. Since Protocol 7 had been executed, since the planet killer had vanished, she had stood exactly where she was, watching the screens, waiting. Protocol 7 had been the most classified program on Earth. Even she had not known the full details until 18 months ago. What she knew was this. 22 years ago, a physicist named Dr. Okafor, the same man now working with the team in Geneva, had developed a theory about folded space, about the possibility of creating a temporary pocket in the fabric of space itself, a pocket that could swallow an object and hold it, frozen outside of normal reality. The theory had been called insane by every mainstream scientist who read it. The government had funded it immediately. 22 years of work, hidden in a facility so secret it did not appear on any government document that had ever been declassified, a facility that officially did not exist, staffed by people who had officially retired from their previous lives, and it had worked. The planet killer was sitting in a folded pocket of space approximately 1 meter wide, frozen in place, going nowhere, doing nothing. It would stay there until someone decided to let it out, and no one was going to decide that. Admiral Chen walked up beside Reyes and said quietly, "Incoming signal from the flagship." Reyes looked at her. He wants to talk, Chen said. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Put him through, she said. Threx's face appeared on the main screen. It was the first time most people in that bunker had seen a Vorath up close. 7 feet tall, gray skin, 4 arms, ancient eyes that had seen centuries pass. He looked like something from a nightmare. He also, General Reyes noticed, looked tired. I am Grand Admiral Threx, he said, commander of the Galactic Council 3rd Expansion Fleet. I know who you are, General Reyes said. I am General Sandra Reyes. I speak for Earth. A pause. You destroyed my fleet, Threx said. You threatened our planet, Reyes said simply. Another pause. Longer this time. I am requesting terms, Threx said. The room was very still. Everyone heard it. Everyone understood what it meant. The Grand Admiral of the most powerful military force in the known galaxy was asking for terms. He was not demanding, he was not threatening, he was asking. Reyes looked at him for a long moment. That is interesting, she said, because your message to us did not include terms. Your message said surrender or be destroyed. No discussion, no negotiation, no terms. Threx said nothing. So I am curious, Reyes continued, her voice completely calm. Why should we offer you something you were not willing to offer us? On the flagship, Threx heard the words and felt them land like something heavy. He had no answer, not a good one. He looked at the human woman on the screen. She was smaller than any Vorath. Smaller than most species he had dealt with. She had no visible weapons. She sat in a room full of machines he did not understand. And she was looking at him with an expression he had never seen from an enemy before. Not hatred, not victory celebration, not cruelty, just patience. Like she had all the time in the world. Like she was simply waiting for him to catch up to something she had already understood. What is left of your fleet will stand down, Reyes said. They will power off their weapons and hold position. Any ship that attempts to fire or retreat will be disabled. You have 5 minutes to give that order. She did not say or else. She did not need to. Threx gave the order outside. Across the solar system, the remaining council ships, fewer than 3,000 now, out of 10,000, began powering down their weapons one by one. The human ships held their positions, watching, not attacking. It took 4 minutes and 30 seconds, when the last council ship went weapons dark. General Reyes sat down for the first time in hours. She picked up her coffee. It was cold, she drank it anyway. Get me a secure channel to all world leaders, she said, and someone please find Dr. Okafor. I have questions about what exactly is inside that space pocket and how long it can stay there. What followed was not quick. It took 11 days of conversations, negotiations, arguments, and long silences between humans and the remains of the Galactic Council fleet. 11 days of working out what came next. 11 days of humanity sitting in a position it had never been in before winning. The Council's leadership back at their home systems did not believe the reports at first. They thought there had been a mistake, a malfunction in the communications, some kind of data error, because what the reports described was not possible. The 3rd Expansion Fleet, 10,000 ships, the largest military force the Council had assembled in 800 years, had been defeated by a species that had achieved space travel less than 100 years ago. It took 3 days for the Council leadership to accept that the reports were accurate. Then they went very quiet on the 11th day. A much smaller Council ship arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Not a warship, a diplomatic vessel, white, slow-moving, broadcasting peace signals on every frequency. It was met by 2 human ships, escorted carefully to a neutral position between Earth and the Moon, and held there while arrangements were made. The diplomat who stepped off the ship was not Vorath. She was Shenkai, smaller, softer-featured, with large dark eyes that moved quickly and missed nothing. Her name was Ambassador Sale, and she had been chosen specifically because she was the Council's best negotiator. She was also, she would admit privately later, completely terrified. She had read the battle reports on the journey here. She had read them 3 times, trying to find the part where humanity had gotten lucky, where they had found a weakness or a mistake or some one-time advantage that would not work again. She could not find that part because it had not been luck. The negotiations took place on a neutral station, a human-built platform in orbit that had been hastily converted into a meeting space in 3 days. It was not elegant. The chairs were mismatched. The lighting was uneven. Someone had put a potted plant in the corner that was already dying. Ambassador Sale sat across from General Reyes and 3 other human representatives. She had prepared a long opening statement, carefully worded, designed to acknowledge the situation while preserving as much council dignity as possible. Reyes listened to all of it without interrupting. When Sale finished, Reyes said, "I appreciate that. Here is what Earth wants." Sale readied herself for demands. For territory claims, for tribute requirements, for the kinds of things the victorious always demanded from the defeated. First, Reyes said, the 14 species currently under forced council control will be released. Full independence immediately, Sale blinked. Second, the council will share its medical and scientific knowledge freely with all species. No restrictions, no payments, no conditions, Sale blinked again. Third, the council's military is reduced to a defensive force only. No more expansion, no more ultimatums, no more planet killers. Sale waited for the 4th demand. The one about Earth's compensation, Earth's new power. Earth's seat at the top, it did not come. That's it, Reyes said. Sale stopped. That is all. That is all. Sale looked at the human woman across the table. You are not claiming territory. You are not demanding tribute. You are not. She paused. Why? Reyes looked at her calmly. Because we do not want to rule anyone, she said. We never did. We just wanted to be left alone. You did not leave us alone. We made sure you understood the cost of that decision. Now we want to go home and get back to work. The agreement was signed on the 14th day. Every species the council had controlled was notified. For some of them, it took time to understand. They had been under council authority for so long that freedom was a concept they had to slowly remember. But they remembered on Earth when the news was announced. The reaction was strange and quiet. Not the screaming celebration people might have expected, more like a long, slow exhale. Like a breath that the entire planet had been holding for 2 weeks. People went back to their lives. The engineer in Nevada started writing papers about her machines that she could now, for the first time, publish openly. The physicist in Geneva called his colleagues and told them they had more work to do. The general in Colorado finished her cold coffee and went home to sleep for 14 hours. The 17-year-old in Brazil updated his communication program and released it as free software for anyone to use. The old farmer in Germany watered his crops. The woman in the Philippines moved her boats back to the coast. Weeks later, aboard a small transport ship heading back to council space, Ambassador Sale sat writing her report. She had been a diplomat for 60 years. She had negotiated with 40 different species. She had seen strength and weakness in 100 different forms. She wrote for a long time. Near the end, she wrote this. The humans did not fight because they were angry. They did not fight because they wanted power. They fought because they were protecting something. And there is no force in the galaxy more dangerous than a species that knows exactly what it is fighting for, and has spent 10,000 years learning how to fight. The Council's error was simple. We looked at what humans showed the galaxy and thought we understood what they were. We did not look at what they kept hidden. We did not look at what they were capable of when everything they loved was threatened. We will not make that mistake again. Neither will anyone else. She closed her report outside the ship's window. The stars moved slowly past, each one a sun, each one with worlds around it. Worlds full of species who had heard by now what had happened in a small solar system on the edge of the galaxy. The story was spreading fast, not the story of a battle. Not the story of weapons and tactics and ships falling out of the sky. The story of a message that the Galactic Council had sent to a small blue-green planet expecting fear. And what they had received instead? The story spread from world to world, from species to species, passed in whispers and broadcasts and carved into the walls of places where beings gathered to remember important things. And the message of the story was always the same. Do not threaten Earth, not because they will destroy you, not because their weapons are powerful, not because they are cruel or hungry for war, but because they will protect what they love with everything they have. Every idea, every mind, every quiet program built in secret over 20 years. Every old enemy turned into an ally overnight. Every ordinary person who showed up and said, "Tell me what to do," they will protect it completely. And you will not see it coming until it is already too late.